From Studio 401, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on The Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. Humanoid and his deer dog hybrid companion startle a man on a Pennsylvania road. Out of Rigglesville, Pennsylvania, a motorist says he saw a tall humanoid meeting an unidentified creature on the side of the road in eastern Pennsylvania. The man, who requested to remain anonymous, said he was driving home after hanging out with friends the night of June 15th back in 2012 when he came across the odd couple standing on an undisclosed road near Rigglesville, a borough in Bucks County with a population of 870. He's quoted as saying, "I have a heavy foot and was enjoying an exciting drive on the empty roads." This is what he submitted to Mufon. "As I was coming up to a nice S-curve, I noticed what I thought to be a deer moving through the brush to my right, across the road in front of me. I braked hard to avoid a collision," he continued. Reportedly, as the deer crossed the road, the eyewitness noticed a glowing blue light coming out of what he calls the helmet of a tall man standing on the left side of the road. Then he says the creature ran up to the strange man. Quote, "My headlights fell directly on the pair. I had slowed down to a speed of about 15 to 20 miles an hour to avoid the collision, and had a clear direct view," he recalls. "The next second lasted like an hour in my mind." The eyewitness says the four-legged creature was similar to a deer in size, with dark brown gray covering that he described as being leathery. It had the head similar to a dog, with an elongated snout and short ears. It had the build of a greyhound with long legs supporting a smaller, slender frame. Its legs, he explained, were bent backwards. He also said the creature didn't have a tail. The human-like being was described as tall and wearing something resembling an astronaut suit. He was wearing a black suit that had several tools and pockets similar to something a Navy SEAL would wear during nighttime ops, he said. The strange-looking man also had a visor over his eyes, out of which emanated a soft, velvety blue light. He was watching me closely as I was watching him, as I passed slowly, 7 feet away. We made eye contact, and the blue glow followed me in my rearview mirror until I made the next bend, and he was out of sight. Then, he says, a disturbing telepathic event took place. I felt him call to me. It was a feeling more than words. It wanted me to come back. It was a strong urge to turn around, mixed with feelings of peace and tranquility. Suddenly, I realized I had unconsciously brought my car to a stop, and this frightened me to my core, and it still does. I immediately floored the car and blew the stop sign at the end of the road as I raced home safely, he explained. Source, Cryptozoology News. And now let's get to our fringe fun fact. Vending machines are a bigger threat to humanity than sharks, while you're twice as likely to be killed by a vending machine than a shark. So when is Discovery Channel premiering their Vending Machine Week? Thanks for listening to the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. Again, I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift.
the first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Good evening, I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void. It is March the 29th, Friday night here on Lighting the Void. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Tonight, Jason Quitt will be joining us, and there's no better person to travel into the void with at night than Jason Quitt. And I want to say thank you all who have supported the show, especially big shout out to Jen. I got your package in the mail. Thank you for all our new supporters. And if you want to call in tonight, again, the number is 1-800-588-0335. You can text in at 501-777-5631. Yeah, so this is a new thing, like the 5-night-a-week thing. I know that you guys aren't used to with me, but I feel like it's time to take that next step. So that's what we're going to do. There's a chat room too over on Spreaker. We're over there if you want to join that. And there's also a chat room on the Fringe FM. And I kind of want to jump right into this because Jason always has some interesting conversations. But I do have to say, every day until Dan gets back out of the hospital, I want everybody to send him your best, send healing to him, and let's get him back out of there. Because I'd like to hear from him again. But I know him. He's a fighter, man. He'll be out of there soon. All right, so here's the thing. For some crazy reason, if you've never heard of Jason Quitt before, let me tell you just a little short story, and it's his story. And in his early 20s, he started having terrifying experiences of sleep paralysis, and he would be awakened by a presence in his room, and he would also become frozen and unable to wake himself. And these experiences started to happen more frequently in his life as he started to become more and more conscious of what was going on. And one night, Jason was trying very hard to shake himself out of this paralysis. And I kind of know what he's talking about there, but something happened that he wasn't expecting. And so Jason shook himself so hard that he popped out of his body, and he actually had his first out-of-body experience. And as he came out of his body, he could see himself lying in bed, frozen, and there was a very tall being standing at the end of his bed. And he knew that this was a genuine experience and was beyond his comprehension. And from that moment on, his perception of the world shifted. And ever since he's had this out-of-body experience, he found that under the right conditions, he could leave his body and start to explore these new dimensions that had been open to him. And Jason started to venture out into these new worlds. He encountered many different beings, guides, masters, and energies, and that came into his life. And they would often wake him up and take him out of his body on journeys to many places and timelines, and to show him and teach him things. So he was no longer the same person after that experience. And they gave him specific teachings to follow so that he could live comfortably in the world. And they said that the most important thing is to heal yourself. And only then could Jason affect change in others. And under their teachings and guidance, Jason sought out many teachers and masters to receive more wisdom. And since then, he's been given many powerful healing techniques and abilities to assist him and others on the planet. And he's also, though, if you want to bring it down to the earth, right, he's also a graduate of the Institute of Energy Wellness and a student of Algonquin Shamanism. And he's also been training and working with many teachers, shamans, and traditional healers from around the world. He's the author of Egyptian Postures of Power and the Yosef Codes, Methods of Personal Healing and Practice. And you can check out the website at thecrystalsun.com. It's really good to have you back on the show, Jason. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here.
I got that story, man. That's when I first heard your story that happened to you. That was kind of about the same time I had, I don't think I had that of a profound experience as you had. But I remember just how long ago when people started talking about Jason Quitt, right? And that's when I knew that, you were the real deal. Because when that stuff happened to me, man, that's exactly how I felt, right? You feel like you go from not knowing that this could be real to changing everything about your entire life and how you view consciousness. And you just want to tell everybody, and you did. And things have kind of kicked off for you ever since, haven't they?
Yeah. And it is like breaking out of the matrix. It's a really good metaphor for it, because, you know, I thought the world was basically perfect. Everything was good. And you have these experiences, and suddenly you can't go back to your normal life. It's just not the same. You have a different perception. You know that there is life after death. You know that the consciousness transcends the physical body, and there is more dimensions that we have access to than we are taught about. So suddenly these things start to open up to people once they have these experiences, and you can try to go back to your normal life, but it might not be comfortable. And when I was in my early 20s, when this started to happen to me, you know, you start talking to your friends about it, because who else are you going to talk to? They don't look at you the same anymore. You know,
right?
They change. They change the way they look at you. They change the conversations around you. And when you start to talk about these things, you can tell they get uncomfortable, and you can tell that they try to switch the conversation, which I totally understand, because I probably sounded like a nutcase back then because I was trying to interpret it. And that's the problem, is that when it happened to me, I did not know what was going on. I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know what books to read. This was before YouTube. You know, I couldn't just go on YouTube and type in these things and suddenly there's videos. I had to kind of figure it out on my own. And I found this show called Coast to Coast AM.
Right.
And it was like, suddenly somebody out there is talking my language. So I'd stay up at night and listen to these shows. And because of that, I got to hear about different authors and people that were on that show. And that's what kind of guided me down this path. And I remember, you know, back when this started to happen, there was like one friend that I knew, just one friend, that also listened to Coast, so that we can get together and then share these stories. And it was very powerful that I knew that there was someone else out there that believed in these things because they happened to them as well. So when I started to come forward and more public about what has happened to me, it's almost like this whole floodgates opened up, and all these other people from around the world said, thank you for coming out and talking about these subjects, because it's exactly what happened to me as well. You know, so it's good to talk about these things. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now everybody's talking about it. And it's funny to me, because it was my favorite subject to talk about when I realized that it was real. And I was constantly, I did the same thing. I just having that one little experience that I had changed my world. And I wanted to talk to everybody about it, my friends and family, but can you imagine some kid, right? And you were probably this way too, just normal, and went to school and watched TV, just led a normal life. And the next thing you know, this guy's talking about, hey man, you can go out of your body and you can travel to other places and stuff. And people probably, they think you lost it, right? Like, what the hell's going on with this guy? And now, and especially in radio, it's what everybody wants to talk about. I get emails constantly like, can you keep talking about this subject? And I'm like, yeah, I could keep talking about it, I guess. But what do you think that means now that so many people are fascinated with it? Are we ready to, take the next step? Does it imply that we're about to make a move that on this planet consciously, you think?
I think there's many factors that's going on right now. And the thing that's really tripping me out the most is the internet. Because if you think about this internet now with social media, we've created another dimension, basically. And it's alive. And we put our consciousness in there. We put our energy in there. We build it ourselves. And people are tapping in more hours a day into this artificial world that we've created, Yeah,
more people are trying to have out-of-body experiences at the very least, right?
Right. So we're right now, many people are shifting seamlessly from one reality, let's say like a home life, into another reality, the internet life, and then going into the other reality, which is the dream world or the relationship world. And we're really separating our realities around us. Like, we're just becoming multidimensional in a physical sense right now. But this whole thing with this outer body experience, people know that it's real deep down. It rings true within them. And many people have had experiences that they can't explain, especially around dreaming. Everybody's had the experience where they have this sensation of they're falling and they grab the bed. You know, everybody has that feeling, and there's no real explanation for it. Many people have, or I would say everybody has deja vus. Many people have dreams that are so real that it changes them. And, you know, we're not talking about just a random dream that happens once in a while. We're talking about a dream that is so profound that when you wake up that next morning, your life has changed. And that's the power of the dreams. That's the power of this new reality and spiritual world that we're starting to tap into.
Yeah, and I always wonder, and I've probably asked you this question before, but I can't stop thinking about it, is what sets you apart from others? Because there are others like you that have moved, once they moved into this realm, they really became very effective explorers, while others tend to struggle, and maybe they're not. And I know you told me before, maybe they're not ready and all of these other different things, but it's like, this is what everybody's thinking about now. They're thinking like, I want to do this. I want to get to this spot. And then once they get there, even when they have like the vibratory state or the paralysis state, they can't stop thinking about getting to that next level, right? Well, what's the next level? And then once they come out of their body, they obsess with, like me, leaving the yard. And it's one little step at a time versus you where you just kind of, or did it work that way for you?
No, it worked that way for me too. It was many years of struggle and trying to figure it out. And I think the reason that I got to where I got was simply because I didn't have that much of a belief system in it. Like, I didn't have like a predetermined structure of I have to meditate and get here, and then I have to, you know, face this and get to that level, or travel here and do this. Like, I never had any structure whatsoever in my mind, any belief system about it, because I didn't know. It's like completely stepping into the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm just kind of learning through experience. And many people, they'll say, well, you have to meditate and get into that state and it will happen. And that is true. A spiritual practice does help you get into these states. But what I've found the most productive is forgetting about everything, having no intention whatsoever, having no belief, and just allowing, if an experience is going to happen tonight, it's going to happen. I don't need to get into that mode. I don't need to get into that mindset. It's just going to work, because that is my normal everyday reality. And this is part of my normal everyday reality. If I'm going to bed every night thinking I'm going to leave my body, it's probably not going to happen. If I go to sleep and let's say have a good night's sleep and I'm not thinking about anything, I'm in a more receptive mode to actually click out and have these experiences. So, and this also has to do with teachings. Like, you know, at first when people start to have these experiences, they have a million questions, and, you know, they're praying, they're writing their questions down, they're sending it out to the universe or whoever they want to send it out to, and they're waiting for this response, like a voice in their head or a journey to be taken on. I'm the complete opposite of that. I only put out the intention, I will know when I need to know.
That's so hard for me to do.
I know.
It's so hard because I want, you know, like the times that I did have those experiences. Well, you know, the one, and I want to talk to you about this too, because I think there's a difference between like the etherical projection and dream projection, but I want it to happen so bad. And even when you say that, I know you're right. Like, I know you're right, man. You're like one of my mentors. I know you're right about this stuff. But after, like, say after tonight, later on or tomorrow when I try this, he's like, okay, just let things go. It's not so easy because it's like once I've had that experience, that's all I can think about because it's paradigm shifting, you know.
Hey, like I said, I was like that for so many years as well. And all I wanted to do was research and learn. I think I don't even know how many hundreds of books I read, just trying to figure out what's wrong with me, trying to figure out, where is this stuff coming from? Who's talking about it? And, you get into a lot of mystery school teachings, a lot of ancient philosophies, a lot of ancient history, a lot of meditation. But really, when it comes down to it, it's like you said, there's differences in dreams. And this is something that we haven't really tapped into. Like we know about regular dreaming, which I would say is pretty standard. You're just working through things that happen during your day or the week. Okay, so that's just kind of normal everyday dreaming. And then the next level above that would be lucid dreaming, where it's very real and you are conscious and you can actually control things in this dream. And I think that's like the first step into this kind of spiritual realm or world. And on top of that, you start to get visitation. And this is what I was trying to teach people about in my book is that when we're talking about other consciousnesses or let's say an alien intelligence or a being not from this dimension, the way that they can communicate with you very easily is actually through dreams or telepathy. So they can actually implant visions, thoughts. They could actually speak to you in that kind of space. I would say the level above lucid dreaming, there could be a conversation. Now, there's a very important level that's in between waking and sleeping. And this is kind of the in-between state, which we call the paralysis state, where your body is frozen and your mind is consciously awake and aware. And this is the space where you can actually move your body, that you have a different body inside your body. Many people call it the astral body. You can actually project and will this body completely out of the physical body in that state between waking and dreaming. And suddenly you're in another dimension. You're in the astral world. And it's from that place that you can jump to different timelines, different locations, and have meetings. I mean, that world, what we call the astral world, is populated. There are beings in that world. And when you step into that world, they're clear as day, like a human standing in front of you. And a lot of people, when they experience this, they get very scared, upset, and they'll never want to do that ever again, because the astral world is full of many things, not just nice things, but there's also nasty things in there. And we just have to be aware that there's many types of experiences in that in-between state.
Yeah, I think the one thing that has been on my mind lately is so the first time I had an experience, I had what I guess Bob Monroe called like the locale one type experience. And this is something I mentioned before where everything was so real. It wasn't a lucid dream. It wasn't an astral travel to another dimension. I mean, it was like I was in this place right now, but it was so much more vivid. And now I've had other out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams and in-between stuff, but that one time I had that, maybe twice, but I know for sure once, I can't stop thinking about what it feels like. There's levels to this, but that place is what I'm thinking about a lot these days, because I had a caller call in last night and he was talking about Rudolf Steiner and asking me about how the ethereal, because they talk about the ethereal body, and it's like you got three different bodies, so to speak, and how your astral body kind of takes away your energy, but your ethereal body feeds it. And I was like, man, I don't know what he's talking about. I haven't read that part about Rudolf Steiner, but I know that section or that level or that experience is real, so to speak.
Now, can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you said this place that you were visited or that you went to is very real. Did you feel like it was almost like a parallel self or world?
I felt like it was this, like it was like the underlying, it was this world. That's what it felt like. It looked that way.
And it was almost like you were comfortable. You were like there, that was your space, and you knew about that environment.
Exactly. And like whatever you're looking at right now, however real that looks, that's how real it was for me.
Okay. So that type of experience, I'll give you two different explanations that I've experienced like that. One would be the parallel world, parallel self type experience, where it's almost like when you go to sleep, you're waking up in a parallel self, in a parallel world. And it's almost like everything is exactly the same as being in this world, but it's slightly different. You have different memories, different locations, different things in that space, and you're very familiar with it. But to your conscious mind here, it seems off. And then there's another experience that I've had where I'm in a dream, and I know it's a dream. Actually, wait a second. I didn't know it was a dream until the dream lasted way too long. So I'm in this place that seemed very familiar to me, and it was literally real. Like I was not dreaming. I was in some place doing some things, walking around, and I realized, wait a second, this is not real. This is a dream. And when I said that, it's almost like this thing went away, and I saw these beings creating this almost matrix-like reality around me, like kind of like a holodeck.
Whoa.
Which I found very amazing. And I realized that it was these beings actually implanting this reality into my consciousness. It's almost like they were making my dream, and they were implanting my dream and putting me inside of it. And when I figured it out, I saw it was almost like seeing the Matrix and then popping out of it and waking back up in my bed.
Yeah, man, that is freaky, and on many different levels. One, because if I had that false awakening experience where I kept trying to wake up, and you realize you're in a dream and you're trapped and you can't wake up, and it's the same thing over and over again. And as the levels increased, things got more vivid and more real. And then at the top level, I guess we could say the top level, right before I woke up, there was a being standing over me. Right. So I feel like that being had something to do with it. Now you're telling me this. Other people that have had DMT experiences, so many people talk about with these DMT experiences that they see like a cross or this thing that they're laying in, and they can see around them, so to speak, like they're laying in something and there's a Biser going around them, or there's a cross and there's beings talking and messing with them. And I wonder, man, if something's not really simulating this whole thing sometimes.
It's very possible, but I'm also really drawn to this parallel reality viewpoint, because it's happened to me so many times that I can't ignore it, that is a very true possibility of what's actually occurring, is that we're actually shifting our consciousness from one self to another self and experiencing that environment and coming back with it. And I'll tell you a quick story. It didn't happen to me. It happened to my wife. And we were in Florida at the time. And we woke up in the morning, and she was very distraught, and she was shaking my shoulder in the morning. Am I back? Is this real? Is this real? Is what she's saying to me. And I had to calm her down. And she had this very intense experience. She was telling me that in the dream, she kept waking up in the bed.
Right.
Thinking that she wakes up. And then she'll even walk around the condo, and then she'll realize, wait a second, this is not, I'm still in the dream. And then she'll wake up again in the bed, and it's still not the real world. So this happened to her so many times that when she finally got back, she was very distraught and asking me, is this the real, are we real? Is this the place?
Whoa.
And that only happened to her once. But that really affected her, because it was almost like she was trapped in this kind of cycle of waking up in the bed, but it wasn't real.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Very
to me.
strange.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, the more I think about it and the more I hear other people's stories, because that's all I do is I try to listen to other people's stories and put parallels together, because this stuff is there's so much out there. That's all we can do. And I get, like, I'm starting to get that feeling that some of these beings are constructing these things or messing with us energetically, either good or bad. I don't know, but that they're controlling these environments somehow.
And for me, it's like the only reasoning that can come to me is that these are teachings, that they're showing us different layers of our own mind, different layers of our own reality. And by actually tapping in and going there, we kind of bring that knowledge back with us, and it changes us. You know, like when I first left my body, I thought it was a terrible thing. You know, I didn't understand it. I thought I was dying. But having that experience opened that world to me. And it's taken on this very kind of spiritual path. And I think that's the goal of all these experiences. So even if we're having very troubling experiences or hard experiences, where you have, let's say, like a being waking you up in the middle of the night, it's showing you that there's more. There's more layers, there's more realities. And once we kind of get over that fear aspect of it and understand what it really is, we can transcend it. We can work with it. We can expand in it. We can learn, what is this and why is it connecting to us?
Right. I wanted to, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that's why I went so far in my journeys, and it's still happening. Very spiritual experiences, is because we have this kind of drive. We really have this curiosity, just like the astronauts going into space. They have this kind of drive. They want to expand more into the world, and we could all do this on an individual level, is trying to find the self. And this is a very, very powerful journey and path for a lot of people.
Now, you're developing a series called Into the Void, right? Are you going to go into the stuff in that series?
Yes. Okay. And this came about from the book I wrote, Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of a Multidimensional Time Traveler. And it also, it was very interesting because I would be sitting at a table, for example, with complete strangers. They don't know who I am. And I could say, oh, we're shooting a movie about this thing called Into the Void, and it's about some of my experiences, which is about sleep paralysis and seeing like a shadow at the foot of your bed. And there would be one person at that table, totally random, that will like drop the food out of their mouth and say, "What did you just say?" So there's so many people out there that these things have happened to them, and they don't tell a soul. Nobody talks about it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell these stories of true experiences, of these outer body experiences, of visitations of different beings, of transcendental experiences that just people have, and numerous people have. And what we found really amazing about doing this, it's a docu-series right now, is that I could tell my story about leaving my body, and we can jump cut to somebody else that we don't know that person. I've never met that person in my life, and they will tell the exact same experience word for word. And not just me, it's happening all over the world. So this is not like a religious thing or a belief thing. This is part of the human experience happening cross-culturally to everyone. So we put our definitions, we put our meanings and beliefs on what these things are. We can say it's, we're all lunatics, or it's demons, or, you did something wrong and now this has come to you like bad karma or something. But it's not any of that. So we kind of have to kind of strip away all these superstitions, strip away the belief systems about these things, and concentrate on the true experience of what's actually happening here. And to hear people telling their stories, sometimes for the first time. They've never told these stories to anybody because obviously they'll feel ridiculed or like they're making it up, which is a terrible thing. You know, why would someone make something up that's hurting their life? You know,
exactly. Yeah.
Me, you know, when I came forward with this stuff, you think my family looked at me the same?
Oh no. Oh no. And
you know,
yeah,
like
that's some more like I want to talk to you about too. We've got to go into our break here, but I wanted to talk to you about that because I had some really crazy experiences with my family and friends trying to get through to people with this. But we're here. It's Friday night. We're here with Jason Quitt. If you're joining us live, we'll be right back.
The show is being brought to you by Ed's new microwave home videotape oven. The only microwave oven that lets you tape your TV dinners for playback at a more convenient time.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on The Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is Cortana from Shift Happens, telling you to pour a glass and park your ass, because you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Shifthead.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. Thanks for joining us this Friday night. We're with Jason Quitt from thecrystalsun.com. And I know it's going to take some getting used to for us being here on Friday nights, but I kind of like it. And so we're going to try to keep doing this from here on out. Jason, this series, Into the Void, there are a lot of people that simply cannot wait until this thing gets done, man. And I've got a feeling because you say you have to go back and forth so much that you're working on it, that it's going to be a really special thing. And I'm a big fan of radio. I always think like podcast and radio, it gets through to people perfectly. And maybe it's just because I love radio so much, but there is something about video, like actually seeing that person tell the story, and seeing the documentary actually happen, that really gets people's attention. Like, it's really weird because we talk so much about consciousness exploration, but our attention span seems like it's at an all-time low now. It's almost contradictory.
Yeah, we just want the chip in our brains and download what we need to download. We want knowledge right away, which doesn't really work. You really need to age with the material to understand it and experience it. But we are visual learners. So seeing a video on a subject is much more easy for someone to process that information than by reading it or even listening to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, earlier you were mentioning people you couldn't like relate to people like your friends and family. All I could do was try to run and tell people, like, it's so embarrassing, man, but I think I lost my job because I became obsessed with the out-of-body experience. Like, literally, not because I didn't want to work. It's just all I thought about. Even on my lunch breaks, I would go out in my car and kick the seat back, find a quiet spot, and just try to get to that space. So I wonder sometimes, is there some unhealthiness to this thing a little bit?
At first, yes, because I think when most people go down that rabbit hole, it consumes them. It's all they can think about. It's all they can do, and it takes over their life, which, it's good in a sense and bad in a sense, because you're not there. You know what I mean? You're just not in this reality. And a lot of people, like for you, it was out-of-body experiences, but think of a person who is like deep down a rabbit hole of reptilian shapeshifters and, killing children. Like, could you imagine that person's mind day to day, that's all this person's obsessing about? It could damage their life. It's horrible to have these thoughts going through someone's mind. But I think also it's almost like your higher self or your guide saying, Joe, I'm going to show you something. And because I'm going to show you something, it's going to change the course of your life. And you're not going to be able to have this job anymore. And now we're going to pull you in this direction to make these new connections because we need you on the radio at this time in your life. And maybe in a couple of years, they're going to take you somewhere else. I kind of laugh, where I was, because at the time of these experiences, I was working in a recording studio doing music and doing marketing and graphic design artwork. And I thought I had the coolest job in the world. I did. I thought I was like, I had the funnest time of my life back then.
It was a pretty cool job.
And I had these experiences during that time of my life, and I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't do it because I wasn't there. I was not present. And I quit that job, and from there I got right into Qigong, and I got into the energy medicine, and I started to heal myself. I started to learn all these things, and I'm here now. And the thing that I find so amazing about that is that the skills that I learned back then with marketing, advertising, graphic design, video, music, I'm still using all those skills. So I'm still working on video. I'm still doing graphic design. I'm still advertising and all these things, but I'm doing it for me. And
that makes sense.
It's coming in so handy now to have that kind of background. And I think it's almost like we learn these things for a reason and a purpose. And it's not something that we throw away, these skills. So even though I have all these experiences and I have this information that's come to me and I share it, but it's those skills and abilities that I grew up with, that I was taught, that's actually aiding me to get that message across.
I'm going to tell you a really corny story, but I have to, man. I have to now that you said that, because I hated everything I ever did, Jason. You know, I hated car sales. I hated customer service. I hated talking on the phone and fixing people's technical problems. I hated managing a bar, right? I hated all of these things, like, to the core. I hated working on the computer and trying to help people fix something that, you know, like this one dude was really typing F10 when I told him to hit F10. Like, it would just drive me nuts, that kind of stuff. But I dealt with people and talked to so many people. And then I remember falling in love with radio during that time, and then listening to that book, Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. And there was a moment in there where he's having a talk with a spirit, could be God, who knows. And that spirit asked him, he said, you know, I've been training you your whole life to become a voice. Are you ready to take this challenge? Right. And I had chills go up my spine. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I've been doing all this crap to get comfortable talking to people. Right. And the chills just kept coming and coming, just out of nowhere. Right. And I was like, I know what I got to do now. I know that sounds so corny and stupid, but when you were saying all that, that's exactly what I was thinking about.
No, I knew where this was going the moment you started. It's almost like you've been trained to do what you need to do before you even knew you had to do it. And this also goes to end of life things, people in hospice. When people are dying, one of the questions you ask them is, do you regret anything? If you can change something in your life, what would you change? And, you know, the person will actually think about this very deeply. And most of the time they'll come back and they'll say, I can't change anything. Even the really horrible things in my life, I can't change that, because if I would make that one small alteration in my life, I would not be right here, right now, in this perfect moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're really not curses at all. And if you guys ever getting into like a bad state or you're having a bad day, just follow Jason's Facebook, because all these memes that you've been putting up here lately have really got me to calm down. I almost flipped out one day, right? I was about to flip out on some flat earthers that were attacking me again. And then your meme popped up on Facebook, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm cool. You know, you've been doing that a lot here lately, I noticed, to try to get everybody to calm down. Just calm down, you know, level out, because you're like being the opposite of what everything on Facebook has been here lately.
I have to say the past couple of years have been very trying, especially on social media. And everybody is very polarized. Everything is a fight.
Yeah.
Everything is a fight. I'm right, you're wrong. And it's become this kind of feast of hatred and anger and drama. And you need something to kind of pop you out of that just for a moment. You need something just to click you back out of it. And, we talk off the air, Joe, and you kind of know my personality a little. And I hope people know my personality by now. I always grew up trying to make people laugh. That's just who I am. I was always, I would say, awkward. And because of my awkwardness and because I didn't feel like I fit in, I turned to humor. So if I could make someone smile, make someone laugh, that just changed the whole energy of the situation. And that's what I've been trying to do with the Facebook, with the memes. And my wife is actually helping too. And she's finding some the most amazing memes to post. And the memes are supposed to either make you laugh, make you smile, or empower you. That's the whole point of this. So that if we can take 1 minute out of your day where you look at a meme and go, oh, that's so stupid, and makes you laugh, you forget about your problems for that moment, and then you can make a better decision on where you're going to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point in time, even I talked to a lot of the listeners off air too, and at a certain point in time, I realized that a lot of these things that everybody's fighting about on Facebook and Twitter, they don't care about. They come to these shows late at night because they want to hear about the things that interest them the most. And, they may be labeled weirdos by some people, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of these people are tapped into things that others just aren't tapped into. And right now in this moment, everybody's into, well, not everybody, but the out of body experience is something that I think has reached another level. But sometimes I worry, Jason, that we're taking it to another level that could be a bit confusing because it's just everybody's doing it now. And you're a frequent traveler of the astral realm, right? Is it more chaotic in the astral realm? Do you see more people popping out of their bodies? I mean, what's going on?
No, like when you have this outer body experience, I find that it's actually very personal. The only beings that are in there with you are either things that are connected to you, let's say different guides or even other yous, I'll say other selves. It's almost exactly the same as from the first time I've started this.
What about the like at the Monroe Institute, they would travel together. That's something I still want to do. Like I want to be able to go, hey, Jason, like really meet up somewhere in the astral realm and say, hey, what's up, man? And you're like, I don't know, I'm going this way. We go that way. But later on, we both remember it. I don't know why I want to do that so bad. Have you been able to do that? Have you ever met anybody that you know in the astral realm and later talked about it? No,
I've never met anybody I know in the astral realm. I'll see people, like I've seen my wife, and it scares me because you're not expecting it,
Right.
So it's like you leave your body and there's like someone else in the room with you and you realize it's your wife out of body and it just freaks you out. Like, what the hell is that?
What was she doing? Was she just standing there and not doing anything?
Oh man. I'll tell you, I don't know how much I could tell you. I don't want.
Just tell me what you can tell me.
But, okay. So this was a crazy experience and it freaked me out. Like I'm tired, I'm going to bed, and my wife is still up, and I think I see her coming to bed, and she pulls the covers up, gets into bed, right? I feel the bed go down, the covers go down, and I see her, like I literally see her getting into the bed. And I'm like, okay, she's in bed, I can go to sleep. 5 minutes later, a light turns off, and then she walks the exact same path and got into the bed.
What?
And I jumped out of bed. I'm like, what the hell just happened?
That's insane. That's kind of scary. That's like Twilight Zone stuff. Did you tell her that you saw it?
Yeah, I was freaked out. I was freaked out because I wasn't expecting, like, that's the thing is like, you're never expecting these things. It just seems like normal at first, and then you realize, wait a second, that wasn't her, or that was her astral self getting into bed before her. Like it just didn't make any sense to me. Like, what just happened here? And I had to try to figure it out. But there are times as well where, let's say I'm in the bedroom and I'll leave my body, and like I said, she'll be already out of her body, standing in the room, and it will just freak me out because I'm not expecting anything to be there. You know, you just expect an empty room because almost 99% of the time when you leave your body, it's like just a quiet, empty space, an empty room. So to come out and have a being just standing there waiting for you, it kind of shocks you a little.
That freaks me out thinking about it too, because sometimes I don't want to see something. So like I'll put I don't really do the meditation. So what I'll do is I'll lay down, I'll do some of the tricks, like wake myself up at 3:00 in the morning, put the headphones on. It could be William Buellman. It could be Robert Monroe I'm listening to. And the first thing I do is, okay, like when I wake up, if I see an entity, I'm just going to move past it and not look at it. And for some reason, that's not the way it works. Like you're going to see them. There's nothing you can do about it, you know? But it seems like the further away you get away from your body, the better, because there's something about it that wants to just pull you back in.
Yeah, the outer body experience is very frustrating because it's almost like you get this outer body experience. It lasts for like 5 to 10 seconds, and you're like, finally, I'm out. I'm doing it. This is amazing. And you're so excited. And because of your excitement, you back to your body and wake up.
Yeah. So you really have to train yourself to have no expectations, right? That's what it's really all about. That's
exactly right. So what I do is when the outer body experience happens, I'm under the impression that there is a different mind at work here. All right. So you have your mind, your personality, your identity, and it's coming along for the ride. You have to understand this. Your mind is going along for the ride. Once you start to affect change or say, I'm going to take control of this situation, boom, your consciousness is sent back to your body. So it's almost like your consciousness or mind identity is going for a ride with the astral body, which has its own mind. It has its own agenda. It knows what it's doing. So when I would say, let go and try to kick my mind out, that's when I have these prolonged experiences. And it is a form of meditation where you try to have that no mind, and you just become this observer of what's happening. And telepathically, you can actually ask questions like, where are we going? What is this? More information. And you'll get this kind of telepathic voice in your mind telling you what's happening. And it's your own voice talking to you. So it's a very interesting experience. But again, when these things happen to you, it's just like lucid dreaming. If you get excited and you start to try to take control, you wake up.
You know, they should make the Twilight Zone's coming back. The show, The Twilight Zone. I don't know how they're going to redo it, but it's coming back. Yeah. They could do 150 shows about experiences like this, because there's just so many different wild things that happen.
Well, I hope they call me.
I hope they do too. That would be really cool to see you on there. Yeah. Okay. So this is more of a philosophical question about the out of body experience. So the Robert Monroe books, I know you're familiar with, pretty much most people are familiar with. He treated all of these places as he was actually leaving his body, going to these other places. He even called like Locale 1, Focus 10, Locale 2, whatever. Thomas Campbell, a physicist who wrote My Big Theory of Everything, he's got a trilogy. He has his own interpretation of it, which I find fascinating too, that you're not going really in or out of the body, so to speak. It's just you're going into consciousness, and that's pretty much what everything is. Do you agree with that, the latter, more?
Well, I agree that everything is consciousness. That I agree with, but when I listen to Monroe's explanations of him and his groups getting together and going to locations, it starts to sound more like remote viewing.
Yeah.
Than it does astral travel. It's like I've done this so many times, hundreds of times. I don't have control over these things. I don't know where I'm going. Nothing is planned. And it's like you get taken on for a ride and that's it. And then it becomes very, very spiritual. That's the only way I could describe it. You get to go to parallel lives. You get to experience you in other bodies. A lot of times you're taken to other versions of yourself at the moment of that self's death. So it's almost like you're there to help in the transition of yourself in another world. It just becomes very, very spiritual. It's like now when, let's say like an entity for some reason enters the room, let's say it tries to attack me or grab me or pull me out of my body. Instead of fighting this thing off anymore, I completely let go of Jason and I just let the energy work, and suddenly that thing is gone and you have an expansive energy and you're traveling somewhere. So I find like the less you do and the more that you can tune into your true self or your true nature, the more those distortions just go away. It's very, very interesting. It's almost like it's like a trap.
Yeah, because he would get into knockout, drag out fights with some of these things where he would cry and scream out and pray. One of the fights he described in his book was just terrifying, and it was like later, I guess. I don't want to ever go through that, right? But later he realized that he just had to let go, and that was all he had to do.
I went through years of constantly fighting these things, constantly. And at first you're like fighting for your life. Like you're just so scared, fearful, like you're kicking and screaming at these things, right? And you're praying to every God you can think of, every angel to help you. And in my case, unfortunately, nothing came to save me. I was still in that situation. Didn't matter who I called or what prayers I used. And I learned that that wasn't the lesson for me. I had to take my power back and I had to learn how to handle this situation. And I found that by tuning into my own nature, tuning into my energy, and not going into that fear or that anger, suddenly the whole experience changes. And I'll tell you some really crazy stuff. Really, really crazy. Sometimes these entities will come on right on top of you. It's almost like they're suffocating you or putting pressure on your body. Your first reaction is to like kick them off or get them off your body so you can move again, you can breathe. Like it just feels terrible, right? And you go into that deep fear. And what I've been doing recently is the complete opposite. Is instead of going into fear, I go into complete like peace. And instead of trying to push them off, I grab them and I pull them into me.
What?
I grab them, I pull them into me.
So like that hooded thing that really freaked me out, you would have reached out and grabbed it.
Well, not that one in particular. The ones that are on top of you.
Okay.
And it was almost like, and people will interpret this the way they want to interpret this, but
okay.
It's basically what I believe is that a lot of these things, these astral entities, are damaged parts of yourself. They're you in a hurt state. And they're coming back to you to be healed. And when you understand that and understand that this is a part of you and it just needs to be healed, then it's almost like this thing changes. It changes and it turns into something very beautiful, very powerful, and it integrates into your body. And it makes you stronger. And I'll tell you another reason why I believe this is one night this entity came to me and this is a mean, terrible looking entity. Like you don't want to mess with this thing. And it was hurting me. It was like almost taking my breath away and taking my energy away from me. I felt it pulling my life from me. And I started to do these mantras and breathing work and just sending it healing frequencies and energies. And it was almost like it was trying to hurt me and I was trying to heal it. Instead of fighting, I was trying to heal it. And it got to a point where this thing just kind of went away. It just like dissolved. And it turned into a person I knew. And they were on the floor crying. So this really terrible entity that was hurting me, once I started to work on it and heal it in that astral world, it turned into a damaged part of someone I knew. And I knew that I was healing this part of themselves, and it was a very hurt part of themselves. And it was connected to me for some reason.
Was this person, did it matter how far away they were? Or were they?
No.
I don't know why I'm thinking of that. I wonder if they were close to you.
There's no time or space. There's no time or space. And this year's, I got so many funny. Anyways, this actually happened when my wife and I started dating.
I got to say, I'm jealous right now, man, because you have all these experiences. Go ahead.
Okay. So, one night my wife wakes up. All right. She wakes up and she sees a being in the room talking to me while I was sleeping. And she was freaked out. She was totally freaked out because she said this being looked like a tall being with like a hood, like what you were saying. But when she looked at the face, it looked like the face was like robotic with like a breathing apparatus in the face.
Like a Sith Lord, right? Or something, huh?
Something, yeah, like a Sith Lord, right. And so she woke me up all freaked out. And she's like, there's this thing in the room, like she's freaking out. She could see it. And I just rolled over to her half asleep. I'm like, yeah, it came because it needed some healing work. Go back to sleep. We'll be done soon.
What?
Because you're in a daze, you're still half in, half out. And so that kind of freaked her out. She goes, I don't know how you can do that because, seeing that thing scared the crap out of her. And for me, I'm just like, just go back to sleep. We're just working on some healing stuff.
Yeah, me and the Sith Lord, we're working on some internal stuff here. That's hilarious. I've had one experience like that I think is funny. It was like the second or third one I had, and I kind of moved around and went across the property over to my dad's house and went into his room, and I was like, Dad, and I was beating on his bed while he was asleep, and he answered me, right? He was like, huh, and I said, Dad, I'm out of my body. This is intense. You can hear me, right? And he goes, yep, you're out of your body. That's cool. And I was like, yeah, that's cool, Dad. And he goes, so what he goes, yeah, you're out of your body. He's like, so what are you doing? Sarcastically, because he's got this sarcastic sense of humor. And I was like, well, I'm just standing here. And he goes, wow. Like he was like he was real impressed. Right. And so I go back in. I don't remember what I did after that, but I remember waking up and talking to my dad the next day. I was like, do you remember me talking to you in your sleep? And he's like, oh man, here we go again. No, I don't remember anything last night. I was like, I swear I talked to you. So I feel like sometimes that I'm talking to people, but they just don't know it or don't remember it.
Once you're out in a traveler, you're out in a traveler, you can't put that back in the bottle, right? And I'm very fortunate to have someone in my life that is kind of like me. We're not the same, but she has these experiences with me. And it's good to have someone like that where it's like, did you experience that? And they can say yes or no, and they could actually give you more explanation. And one of the freakiest, it's not the freakiest, one of the most amazing experiences I had with her was when we were first dating. I took her camping, and we went to this very sacred island in Ontario called Manitoulin Island. And it's a completely native island. It was never taken over by the British. Very powerful sacred sites there. And it's like I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel this energy running through my body. It was like the most powerful healing I've felt. Like it felt like there was energies going right into my back and working on me like a deep tissue massage, right? Uh-huh. And I roll over and I look up, and my girlfriend at the time was sitting up in the tent. Her eyes were completely open, wide awake, and her hands were up, like doing energy work on me. And she just looked right at me and she goes, "Just relax and go back to sleep." That's what she said.
And she never remembers any of this stuff, does she?
And I'm like, okay. And I went back to sleep, and it was like this energy, this healing, this energy was so intense that it was like amazing. So I woke up the next morning and I'm like, "Monica, that was incredible. That healing you gave me last night was so crazy. Like, how did you do that?" She's like, "What are you talking about? I was sleeping the whole night."
Don't you find that frustrating though? To me, like, I mean, I know it's funny. It is funny, but after a while, it's like, it's kind of lonely out there, right? I mean, and these people don't recognize you're even there.
And what we figured out that was that it wasn't Monica. It was one of these native spirits of the land took over her body when she was sleeping to do the work.
Took over her body. Yeah.
Took over her body.
That leaves me with a whole another series of questions. So I wonder about that, because when I was younger, I didn't care about any of this stuff, Jason. Like, I played football. I was a dumb jock going to a redneck school. I cared about how cool I was looking and partying. And even when I got in my early 20s, I didn't care anything. All I did was want to duck hunt and play golf and play video games. And something happened. And I remember a crazy dream that I had, and had a panic attacks for 2 years. And now I'm this guy. And I got to say, man, sometimes I wonder if I'm not, and I know this sounds crazy, but if I'm not the same person I was before.
Man, I don't want to go too far, but
it does scare me when I think about it sometimes, really.
I think that, like I say, there are parts of us, because we are multidimensional self. There are parts of us that will actually step into our lives, and parts of us that will leave during parts of our lives. And I think it's part of our evolution and learning. And, I've been thinking about this a lot, especially with these parallel selves. You go to be with another self of you in another dimension or time, and you're helping that part of you in the transition. Sometimes maybe that self could connect to you in this consciousness, in this life, and the tools and the gifts and the knowledge that that person had in that life is now transferred over to you in this life. And a lot of people call these walk-ins, where it's almost like they have a near-death experience, and an other version of themselves, like a higher version of themselves or a completely other being, will connect to them or step into them, and now suddenly they're a completely different person, and they have new gifts, new abilities. Things might even heal. Like, for example, myself, I was very dyslexic. I stuttered. I would never speak publicly ever. Right?
Really? You were a shy guy once.
Yeah, I would be the quiet observer. I would never speak. And now all I do is speak. And even for myself, that trips me out, that I was that person back then, and now I'm this person now, which is totally night and day of who I was. And it had to do with that spiritual awakening.
Yeah, because I remember, like, when I was young, man, all I cared about was getting a buzz or getting stoned or whatever, and I just started having these weird feelings, man. Like, what am I doing with my life type feelings? And then, people go through that stuff. It's psychological to a point. And then started having panic attacks like crazy. And then I had this weird dream of a moon and it was so real. I remember it to this day, of a moon that was in the sky, a full moon, and another moon rose next to it. And the moon that was previously there started falling kind of like to the earth. And you know how you feel your stomach, like when you're going down a roller coaster or something, you feel that. I felt that in the dream, and a whole lot of fear, but I felt some type of weird shift. And I really think like ever since that dream, something else moved into me, or I changed or something.
You know, there's ancient stories and philosophies about the earth having more than one moon, and that one of them crashed into the earth. Do you know that, right?
No, I didn't know that, but now you're starting to really freak me out, man. No, I did not know that, but it was a very real dream to me, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it changes you. And like, remember, when I first started coming out and talking about these things, I was talking about the first time travel journeys I went on, which was like into a future timeline where I saw like destruction. Like I saw the earth basically destroyed in many different ways. And, you know, it still boggles my mind because, you know, I don't want to believe that that's our future, but maybe it's a future, not even a future. Maybe it happened in a parallel timeline to us. So one of my selves experienced that on another earth, and it sent that information back to me here to say, this is what could happen to the earth if you guys continue down the path you're on. You know, so seeing prophetic visions doesn't mean that it's going to happen in this timeline. Seeing prophetic visions may mean that you're actually seeing an actual event happening on another parallel or another timeline.
Wow. Yeah. See, and what is that? See, in this dream particularly, I don't want to take up too much people's time with it, but it was, I remember being at like a building and people were drinking like beer and I know I was somewhere, but there were woods everywhere. And when the other moon rose next to it, everybody kind of froze. You know, that freaky dream where everybody's still and they're not breathing. They're just looking and you're the only one moving around. And I was like, well, you get that weird, creepy feeling. And then the moon fell. And I had that years ago. I mean, what does that mean? Like, I still know about those types of dreams years ago. And I hear other people say, I don't remember dreams I had yesterday. How can you remember dreams you had when you were 13 or 5? But these dreams I'll never forget about. They stay with me. Does that mean they mean something more?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. I don't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I can remember dreams and journeys I went on as a child. You know, so obviously the things that have meaning in your life, that have importance, they will stay a part of you. And maybe that event, you know, I'll just go out and say that, let's pretend that that was a real event that happened in another world. And a part of your consciousness was living in that world and experienced that event. And you had this kind of bleed through or connection through time and space to be there with that other self to witness what was happening.
Yeah, that's so freaky the more I think of it. So does that mean, all right, so if that's true, is there a way that I can tap into, because everybody wants success, right? They want to live their ultimate life, their ultimate reason why they're here. I think Crowley called it the supreme will. Is there a way that I could actually talk to, like get some guidance from that person, like me, that's realized before it? You know, I'm trying to cheat the system here. I know it sounds bad, but that would be cool if I could do that.
All you have to do is have this type of mindset, is that if we live in parallel worlds and parallel dimensions and there's infinite self, let's just put out that idea and concept. That means that there is a version of you that is the highest master that you could achieve. All right? And that aspect of you is always connected to you because it is part of your consciousness and it's living its own life out there. So what you can do is you can tap into that self and say, you know, hey, it's Joe from planet Earth, this timeline.
Right.
I'd like to be the best that I could be in this timeline, and you're the highest aspect of what I can achieve because it already exists. Can you connect with me and help guide me and teach me because you're already there? You know, and if you put out that kind of intention, it may start to come to you through dreams. It may come to you through experiences or even knowings or bleed throughs. For example, in healing techniques, if you're injured or hurt or sick, you know, you can take the mind and you can say, there is a version of myself where I'm completely healthy. And you can move that mind and intention to that part of yourself that's completely healed, completely well. And you can feel it, experience it, and the body can start shifting into that state. And this has been documented through healing for forever, basically, that people do have these miraculous healings that no one can understand. Just one day they have this disease and one day they don't. There's no explanation why.
Well, let's look at one of the biggest, I guess you could say, diseases on this planet right now, obesity, right? I'm a chubby guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like to, if I can cheat the system, I'm going to do it. Can I tap into that vision where I look like, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme? And all of a sudden it just starts happening, because that would be great, right? It doesn't sound like that could be a real thing, but I think, well, from what I'm getting to you, it could be.
Well, not in the way that you're saying it.
Yeah, like
it's not, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and suddenly you're going to have like a six pack, you know.
Oh, shit.
But it might give you the will to be stronger. You know, you're tapping into a self that's like really strong and really fit and really healthy. You may wake up one day with like a vigor about you where it's like, I'm going to change. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to go to the gym because I feel that vitality. I know what that feels like. So now I can actualize it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's all we all really lack, is the will to do it. And the funny is, when you say that, when I had that dream and that transition, I did move into the best shape of my life. So that is funny that you mentioned that. We only got a few minutes here before the halfway point. There's a thing that I'm really obsessed about, and it's because I'm starting to kind of believe it. I don't really believe things, Jason, as quickly as some other people do. So I start to put a lot of things together, and then I'll go down that road. Well, in all of these different mystery schools, there's people that talk about the lunar body to the solar body, and Eastern mysteries, it's the rainbow body. It's been called different things, and I wanted to go down this road with you because in this narrative, so to speak, people call it the true alchemical process of energetic transformation. I've heard it called that before, but in this narrative, you become a superconscious being that can travel through starlight, and you no longer have to stay on dense planets anymore. And as crazy and science fiction-y as that sounds, I'm actually starting to feel like there's a bit of truth to it, and I just wonder what your thoughts are on
it. This is a big thing. Do we have time before the break for this, or just start?
We got about 5 minutes before the break, but yeah.
Okay, so it's been called many, many names, as you know. You know, a rainbow light body, solar body, cosmic body, atom-catum body, diamond body. There's luminous body. There's so many different names for what you're speaking of. And like you said, it's kind of like this alchemical process of transforming a dense matter into light energy matter. And this has been talked about as long as recorded history. And I'll connect it back to Egypt probably after the break. But you have to remember that these teachings with the rainbow light body, for example, it's not something that happens overnight. It's a lifetime of practice. It's a lifetime of spiritual meditation practices. It's about living the purest life possible having pure compassion and truth, and letting go of all those things that hold us down. And this luminous body, and this is very like ancient traditions, it happened once a person died. Okay? So most of the teachings, they talk about this body as being created post-death because of the actions that someone had during their life. So if someone's like a very high master, when they pass on, their body is going to have this kind of transformation. And with the Buddhist tradition of the rainbow light body, what they say is really interesting. They say that when the person dies, it takes about 7 days. And once the person dies, their physical body itself starts to shrink. Like, this is really weird stuff, right? The physical body starts to shrink. And sometimes after the 7-day process, there is no body left. It's almost like they've shrunk into nothingness. And it's usually accompanied by a physical experience where around the environment where this person has died, once they've reached that transition, they say that people experience seeing rainbows around the house or the area that this person died, where the body made that transition. And then the Buddhists will look at that and say, this person has made the highest, or has achieved the highest level of spiritual development, and they've reached their rainbow light body because of their seeing the physical rainbows above this person's house. So that's one definition. And this is the most common definition of what they are looking for. In fact, I think it was a recent story. I think it was back in 2013, I think. One of these Buddhist masters died, and they measured him at death. And then 7 days later, they measured him again, and he was like, I don't know how, like 7 or 9 inches shorter. And because the body shrunk, and because there was a rainbow at around the 7th day around this person's house, they said this person achieved that rainbow light body and achieved that high level of mastery. So that's one definition of this. And then we go into the more esoteric version of it, which is someone is achieving it while they're living, where you have some spiritual master meditating in front of his disciples, and suddenly his body starts to dissolve into light. And the body becomes so luminous with light that they see these rainbows around the light of the body, and then the master disappears. Again, this is a form of death. So in each case of these bodies being formed, the human person ceases to exist. So the rainbow light body from Buddhism that we described, the person dies, he has to die first, and because of his life's accumulation, he gets, or that person gets, the rainbow light body. Or the person who's meditating at a very, very high level, suddenly their body just dissolves into light and they're gone. And they've achieved that state. Both instances, they are no longer physical. They are no longer on this planet. You know,
you get the so you believe in this too, right? Like, I'm not trying to get you to say I'm Jason Quitt, this is what I believe, but I'm starting to believe this, where other people are like, well, I've always believed this, Joe. Well, I don't follow belief so easily, but this, I'm really starting to come to know or feel that it's true.
Well, I believe it in the sense from the Egyptian standpoint. And I think after the break, we'll go into that because it's a little more complicated, but I think that this is where all these systems kind of stem from, that one understanding.
Right.
And it's very detailed as well. But I think it's very possible, but I think it's misrepresented and it's distorted. What we believe here in the West with ascension and this rapture stuff and the New Age beliefs around these cosmic and rainbow bodies, I think it doesn't represent what it really is.
All right, and we're going to go down this road just a little bit further, guys. I'm here with Jason Quitt. This is Lighting the Void. I'm Joe Rube. We'll be right back.
This is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
This is Paranormal News. I'm John Jeter. Details of the next story are a little dusty, if you know what I mean. NASA's OSIRIS-REx spacecraft has recorded a phenomenon on the asteroid Bennu that has never been seen before in an asteroid. Lots of dust. Plumes of dust, in fact, being shot out of it. Principal investigator Dante Loretta of the University of Arizona called it one of the biggest surprises of my scientific career. OSIRIS-REx is getting to know quite a bit about Bennu since it arrived in orbit around it in December. Bennu is believed to be as old as the formation of the entire solar system. Meanwhile, NASA is considering sending a small satellite on a mission to the massive asteroid Pallas in the summer of 2022. The project already has a name, Athena, for the Greek goddess the asteroid is named for. An official announcement is expected within the next month. Talk about mind-blowing. New evidence makes the case that our brains can actually detect Earth's magnetic fields. A research group including a geophysical biologist, a cognitive neuroscientist, and a neuroengineer say they found evidence that much like pets, humans too have magnetic senses. By recording electrical activity in the brains of 34 participants using an EEG, they found that certain magnetic field rotations could have triggered responses from the brain. Imagine if this research leads to the discovery of a previously unknown sensory ability. Connect with the news at ParanormalRadio.com. I'm John Jeter, and this is Paranormal News.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You know, food was different 60 years ago. It was minimally processed, free of pesticides. It was nourishing and healthful for your body. Today, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and heavy processing have depleted the nutrition of our food supply, which takes a toll on our health and energy. It's harder than ever to get the right nutrition. That's what Life Change Tea is meant to counteract. Our specially blended, powerful herbal formulas can give you more energy without caffeine. It's a mild cleanse, a mild daily detox. A good detox can help revive and bring back the energy of your youth. GetTheTea.com is the website. It'll cleanse you from the inside out with this herbal proprietary formula. Go to GetTheTea.com. There's no fillers, no GMOs. It's organic. Not available in stores. You must go to their website, GetTheTea.com. And their supplements are a great way to maintain your health. Read the testimonials on the website. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're with Jason Quitt from thecrystalsun.com. Just a little interesting fact for all of you Star Wars nerds out there, that the lightsaber battling in France has become an official sport. So if you're a super like Star Wars nerd and you really love lightsabers, it's an official sport now. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's not even like fencing. There's no danger in it, but it's an official sport. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But earlier, before the break, we were talking about the light body and the solar body and what all these different religions called it. There is a thing about, or mystery religions, but there is a thing about the Egyptians, Jason, that I find a lot of people are just drawn to the Egyptian teachings and the Egyptian culture. And I feel even like when I'm reading about it or when I'm around the symbology, or even in Vegas when I was at the Luxor, which a lot of that symbolism is off, but I still have like these deja vu things. So why do you think we're so attached to the Egyptian culture and teachings?
I think they had a lot of very powerful information, community, and they were really into this after death multidimensional self thing. And they had a lot of information about it. And they almost had like maps or guides that explained the whole process of different things, the rituals, so that when you were living, you can master these mysteries and understand them, so that when you entered into these other worlds, let's say the astral world, or when you die and you go into the afterlife, you will have a knowledge and power with you that you take with you into the afterlife that you can use to navigate and guide yourself through it. So for us, it's almost like we're in amnesia. We don't know who we are. We don't know anything about the afterlife. We don't know anything about spirituality or consciousness. And most people just call it superstition, really, or demons or devil, So it's like we've kind of lost touch with this massive amount of work. And it's the massive amount of work of who we are and what our reality is. So when we see Egypt, it's like a monument that's out of time. And it connects us from our time period right now, back thousands of years, to a community of people that had some type of knowledge that we have forgotten. And because of that, we are very drawn to it and very much connected to it in our timeline.
And you're very connected to it. I mean, you wrote some books about it, about the postures and tapping into that energy. What do you know? Like, what is, when it comes to this body, like this, I guess we could say light, but let's just call it the light body.
Yeah.
Did the Egyptians really hold the key to that, do you think?
Well, they saw the human body, they saw the human being as multiple selves, as multiple bodies. And they even had different names for these bodies. So one of the most known one is the Ba, which is the bird. And you would see this bird with the person's face hovering outside the dead body. And that's in many of the symbols of Egypt. You see the mummy or the deceased on a table, and you're going to see the Ba as the bird flying above the deceased body with the head of the deceased. And this is what we would call the astral body. And the Ba holds your identity and it holds your personality. All right. Now, there's all these different bodies, including the heart was a separate body, and the heart would record every single thing that happened in your life. It's like the book of life. It recorded every moment of your life was your heart. So every action you did was recorded within your heart. And this is why in the Book of the Dead, they show the scales where they take the physical heart and put it on the scale with a feather. And if the feather represented truth, and if the heart was heavier than truth, you would have to go back and try again, basically. So there was all these different bodies. Now, when we're talking about the light body, there was a process that, again, it happens after death. All right, so this is once a person dies, they believe they have many bodies, one being the Ba, and the other body is called the Ka. The Ka body is your, I'll say your duplicate, your energetic duplicate of who you are. It is the energy, the actual life force energy that gives you life. That's what the Ka body is. That is what animates you, is the Ka. And they believe that after death, the Ba, which is the astral body, and the Ka, which is the light body or the energy body, there were rituals that were done that would unite the Ba and the Ka after death. And if these rituals were done properly, and the person was already adept at the mysteries, they lived a good life and they understand the process, once they joined the Ba and the Ka together, it created a brand new body. And this body was called the Ak. And the Ak translates to the shining one, the immortal, the star being. And once you created the Ak body, you were immortal. And you were basically starlight. That's what they called it. You were starlight. And you could be immortal and travel to stars and become a star in the sea of Nut, in the universe, in the stars. You can become a star. And that's what their belief was. But for them, this was a whole building structure through life. So this was a person born into this world, learning the mysteries, going through the spiritual practices of purity and refinement over their entire lifetime. And then once they died and they had that knowledge, the priests at the time that knew these rituals would assist that soul, those pieces of the multidimensional self, the Ba and the Ka, to unite to create this new body. So this is very, very ancient stuff. And we see that this type of information is still here today in the form of the light body or the rainbow body. But I absolutely believe that this is true, this is real, and it can be accomplished. And it is a form of ascension in the purest form of the word ascension. But it's attained after a lifetime of spiritual practice and study and done properly. All right, so this is not something that just happens overnight.
Can it happen in several lifetimes, though?
Right. It could happen in several lifetimes. But again, it's like we've forgotten this knowledge. And, what I find really interesting is that people in the New Age community today, they talk about things like this. They talk about ascension. They talk about the rainbow light body. They talk about the cosmic body. And they talk about it in a way that they can attain this right now. And, I think every single person in the world could attain this because this is our reality. This is the way our bodies work. And it doesn't need to be a special time. It doesn't need to have a special event to happen. This could happen to anyone in any time frame, but it takes a lifetime of practice and understanding to refine the energy to that state.
Are the rituals still available like the proper rituals or are they gone? Are they lost in our history?
See, this I don't know. I think that the information has always been here. I don't know who would be adept at that level to perform these things. In fact, I think this is the first time I'm talking about it openly. He's on your show. But definitely this is a process. And I also think that, and this is just my personal opinion and belief, is that if you study the mysteries yourself and you understand the different bodies, that if you are conscious and aware through the death process, I think you yourself could perform this connection and become a shining one. I don't think it's entirely necessary for these rituals to take place if you are at that level of connection to understand the process.
That makes total sense to me, because everything is in nature is in a state of when we look in physical nature, everything is, it's really true. As above, so below. There's so many different things that correspond fractally down to this earth, back up to the universe, like sacred geometry and, the law of three and fundamental, just all kinds of different fundamentals. But it seems to me like things are in a state of becoming, but down here, we've got all this other little stuff that we don't understand. Like, why do we have all these different animals? Why do we have all of these different structures? And it's almost to me like I wonder if it's a training ground. Like the animals are here to teach us dominion and how to love things properly that we're responsible for, and et cetera, et cetera. So when we do become these shiny ones, that if we have more responsibilities because we're in control of more things, like, say, life on other planets. That's just stuff I think about. There's no way that I know about it, but it's kind of like I feel that, if it makes any sense.
But also remember that it was common knowledge back then that to become a shining one wasn't the end of the journey. You could always choose to even incarnate back here and live again as a human and have a normal life.
Can we
do it again?
Can we, and I wonder about that too, because can we skip the diaper changes and stuff? Can we just come in like when we're 7 or 8? There's some stuff I really don't want to go through again, but I love life, Like, can we just pass that up? That would be cool.
Oh, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. These are all very like spiritual or metaphysical concepts. And I really think that, right now you have let me go back a little.
Sure.
To this whole idea of ascension. All right. Because this is like what everybody's talking about now.
Oh yeah.
And, me and you have been in this game for, many years. Like, we've been researching and going through these things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Y2K?
Yep, sure do.
Okay. You remember before Y2K, it was like, Christ is coming back. We're ascending. It's the 2000th year, and we're just going to be raptured off in the year 2000.
Right.
Do you remember that?
I absolutely do. Yeah.
Okay. People were dead freaking serious about that. Like, people were selling their homes and like standing outside naked in their backyard waiting to be raptured, like it was serious.
Yep.
Okay. 12 years later, what happened 12 years later?
Yeah. 2012, the end of the Mayan, or the end of the world, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay. So, I started to come forward around 2007, 2008. That's when I started to kind of become more vocal and public about who I am. And I remember doing health shows. Like, I would always get booths at the Toronto Health Show. And back then, from the years like 2007 to like 2011, those shows were packed. Like, there's so many people in those shows, it was hard to walk down the aisles. Like, that's how congested these shows were. Because everybody was into 2012. Everybody was really into what was being talked about back then, which was the ascension is happening. It's for real this time. And, on December 21st, 2012, we're going to wake up completely enlightened in another dimension. And a lot of people believe that again. And when that didn't happen, 2012 health show, 2013 health show, it was sparse. There was like nobody there going to these events because so many people felt let down that they were like really planning on this kind of idea of the end of the world. And I see this kind of pattern. This is always happening with us. There's something, an event that's coming up around the corner and it's going to change everything. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I wonder the same thing. Why? Why are we like that?
It's almost like, for me, it's like a form of escapism. It really is. Like to think that something is going to happen and come about and we're going to be instantly ascended or instantly enlightened. When all these ancient traditions, they talk about ascension and the light body and all these things as something that occurs when you die.
After death, right. And we're interpreting it as it's going to happen to, I see what you're saying. Right.
So it's like, let's say an event does happen, right? Where like a solar flash hits this planet. If it's a really powerful solar flare that hits this planet, you are going to ascend because it's going to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
you know? So it's absolutely accurate. But that's what I'm trying to tell people, that the whole concept of ascension has a different definition to it. It's a different definition. To ascend as you're living, if you want to ascend as you're living and breathing in a physical form, it means to expand your awareness beyond the physical world, to experience the multidimensional self, and to be free. That's what the purest form of ascension in the physical self can be. Because, someone like myself, we've had transcendental experiences, like the most incredible, enlightening, godlike experiences, and you come back to the body and it's like you have been at the highest level that you could possibly fathom, and you still have to go pay your taxes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The
it's
super
like
mundane stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like life doesn't change around you. You may change, right? You may have a different perception of reality. You may have a different perception of yourself, a different awareness of everything around you, but life goes on. Well,
it's kind of even like the Book of Revelations. That's a scary book if you take it literally. But if you look at it esoterically, there's astrological symbolism. It could definitely be talking about just the death of the body and the soul transformation on a deep symbolic level,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be a major event that happens on the earth.
Right. Right. So it's like you'll have people walking around, individuals that have had experiences at a very high level, very, very high level. And these are just normal people. They're not meditating or doing anything. It's just sometimes these experiences happen to people and it will change them. Absolutely. It'll change them, but it doesn't change the world around them. It's like an individual experience. So, right now everybody's talking about how the world is changing and all these amazing things, and the world is at war in most places. Most places are in poverty.
Right.
It's like we have this very distorted vision of our reality, of this planet and where we're actually at. And a lot of people will say, if you just meditate or focus on the good, the world will change. And in a sense, they are correct. because if you change yourself and if all individuals change themselves, the world would change. But there are definitely atrocities happening on the planet, and we can't just close our eyes to them and meditate them away. You know, you have to face the reality that has been given to us.
Yeah, and when I look at the news, I don't see a lot of ascension going on, honestly. Like, I hear about it in this community, but when I look at like you say, the rest of the world, the news, some guy runs into the Church of Scientology waving a sword around, another shooting happens to this, and they're like, well, those people aren't ascending, but we're going to ascend because we understand. And I'm thinking, I like, a part of me thinks it doesn't work that way. Like, life is life. It's what it's for. It's what it's meant to do. And there's no escaping it. You're going to go through life, the birth and death cycle, and there's nothing special about it that you get to do that others don't get to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's an individual thing. I get what you're saying. I just don't buy into a lot of the ascension stuff that's talked about now for that reason, you know?
Yes. And, you know, when I had these experiences, one of the main teachings was you need to be responsible for everything you do and think. Like, you need to take responsibility. No one is going to help you but you, right? And when it comes to this kind of new consciousness that's entering these communities, it's the opposite of that. It's almost like the same as the savior complex, where the message is, don't worry about it. We have everything under control. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't worry. And that's kind of what's going through all these different communities, is like, everything's good. Don't worry about it. Go back to sleep. You know, we have this covered. Trust us. Trust the plan. You know, you hear all these weird things all the time. And that's just a way of shutting people down, actually. It's the opposite of what people want.
Is that why I feel opposite? Because when I talk to somebody like you, you speak rationally, but you still talk about ascension in a way that makes sense. You talk about paranormal activity in a way that makes sense, and things that you don't know, you know, you're willing to say, you know, I don't know. And yet I trust you because of those things. But when I get around people that got the answers to the universe, black holes, life, aliens, everything, I don't trust them on a soul level. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I can't, I'm like, I nod and smile, and I don't relate to them. Right.
And that's the thing, is that truth is perception. Let's just get down to it, really. Truth is perception. And as your perception changes, your truth will change. And everybody will say, no, that's not true. Truth is truth. And I'll just say, no, it's true for you at this moment in your life. You know, you may build on that truth, but the truth will evolve with you, you know? And like, I'm the type of person where I really do just let it go. Like, I could get information coming to me, and I'll take it in and process it. And if I need it, or if it's good for me in the future or good for others, I'll bring it up in conversation, or I'll use that information. But it's not the end all be all. You could still disagree with information that comes to you. And that's what a lot of these channelers don't really understand, is that just because you're receiving a message does not make it the truth. It may just be what you need to hear at that moment of your life, you know? So we really need to get into this kind of spiritual realism. And I think that's what you're kind of referring to. We really need to be realistic of what these things are. I mean, if you think your thoughts could completely manifest your reality, you know, if you jump off a bridge and as you're falling, you know, you're believing that you're going fly. To just, you can fly, right? Well, no, I mean, that's not spiritual realism. You know, you're going to die or get really, really hurt.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter how strongly you believe. So this is when we get into these ancient traditions of gnosis, which is different than learning. It's different than knowledge. Gnosis is like it's universal laws, as in things are going to happen according to a certain set of laws, that it doesn't matter what you believe or you think, those laws will out-trump you. Absolutely.
You can, and see, that's what I believe, like, magic is about. People laugh and they go, oh, magic is about waving your hand and a magic wand or whatever, and something pops out. Well, the occultists, they understood the laws, right? That things, they would send intention and focus out, and the manifestations would come back through the laws and systems of the universe, right? So that's why things would manifest later, or when they forgot about it or something, in a way that seems extremely coincidental. But after a while, a mystic or a magician or occultist, whatever you want to call them, they'd be like, okay, after 150 coincidences, we're manifesting this. The probability is just too outrageous,
Exactly. So once you start going down through the mysteries, you start letting go of all your beliefs. And it's a very strange thing. So people will say, well, Jay, what do you believe? And I say, well, I believe this, but that's my opinion. It might change. Like, I'm not stuck in holding a belief structure. I'm more into knowing the laws, and kind of just living in that universal flow of energy and understanding that there's always an ebb and flow of energy. There's always a life and death, polarities, push and pull. There's all these things that are naturally occurring, like the cycles and seasons. And if you could tap into the natural things and understand how they work, it's going to work regardless of what you think. And that's basically the foundation of what you're talking about, which is kind of like the occult and the magic side of things, where they could tap into real flows of universal truth and energy and use it with their intentions and draw it into themselves, or draw it into objects, or for manifestation, or for growing crops or making alchemical changes. That's how they would do it. They would need to know the gnosis.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but what you're saying, Jason, and this is where I want to get into the ego thing, which is a hard talk, right? Because you're a pretty big name in this community. I mean, I know you're very humble, man. You're not going to say, I'm a big name, I'm Jason Quitt, blah, blah, blah. And that's not you, right? But the things that you're saying now, I gotta tell you, you're kicking against the pricks of a lot of things in the community. And that's just a saying, Does that worry you at all, man? Because you've got people that really look to you for answers and stuff. You're kind of like one of these icons in the community.
Well, the truth is that I've always been speaking like this since I started.
Yeah, but
so
right.
So if you knew me back then, I would still be talking about the same stuff. And for example, I did a radio show in 2011, and it was one of the first ones I did. And one of the first questions they asked me was, so tell me what's going to happen in 2012 and the ascension and all this stuff, right? Because that was huge back then. And on the radio, I just said, nothing is going to happen, and people are going to be very upset. And I remember many people were very upset with me for just saying that, because there's so much momentum and so much people's positivity about this huge thing that's going to happen. And I just came out and said, sorry to disappoint you. It's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen, because that's not truth. And I can only talk from my truth. And I'll admit right here, I could definitely be wrong about a lot of things that I'm saying, because I'm still learning. Okay. I'm not at the level, and I don't think I'll ever be at the level where I can say I know everything, Because what's the point of being on planet Earth if you know everything? Seriously.
Really? Right. That becomes boring to a point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's that's a trait I admire, and it's rare. Like it's not as rare as I'm making it out to be, but I think it's just because there's just so many different things being marketed to the community. But I know this community. I've talked to the listeners, like I know who they are, and they just really want the truth, man. They want to know this stuff for real. People talk about like cult-like mentalities and stuff, and that there is that. But for the majority, man, like these people really want to know. And like they get to the point where like, I don't care who you talk. I just want to know.
You know what? We're blessed actually, because this community is awesome. Like there's such pure hearts in this community. It's unbelievable. And they're coming into this community with open hearts. They're seeking knowledge, and they're trying to gather as much as they can and get from every source they can. And we should be applauding them for that.
Right.
I mean, that's huge. I have a bookshelf right now in my office. It's got to have like 200 plus books in this shelf right here, and I've read all of them. There are authors in that bookshelf that are that at a time I thought they were the best information out there. I was like, this stuff is crazy amazing. And years later, I find out that that information is not good for me. It's taking me off my path. It's not in my truth, So, but it took me to go through that and to learn about all those areas of research for me to realize that that's not my path, and it took me somewhere else, So a lot of people argue online about who's right, who's telling the truth, and all that stuff.
Right.
I'll tell you the real truth. You need to know that stuff. Okay, you need to know things that are not true. And I say this because once you know and understand what's untrue, you're going to find your truth. And sometimes it takes years of being involved in untrue stories for you to realize that that story actually changed you. It evolved you into something that you were not ready for at that time. But now you're ready to get into some really amazing things. And it took you to that level. So it's the same thing I was talking about earlier, is that even with entities, you say these really horrible experiences, are they good or bad? And I say, actually, they're all teachings and they're all teachers. And even the most horrific or terrible things that I thought were happening to me were the best experiences of my life, because they taught me so much that now I know. So people need to research and go through a lot of this information, because there is a lot of truth within it.
Right. There's I'll just say it too. There's a lot of bashing of certain names goes on. And I got friends that, they make fun of certain people and stuff, and I won't say any names, but these people did give us some good information. Like, they're not wrong about everything, right? I mean, when it comes to like sacred science and biogeometry and energetic stuff, they were spot on. Where it gets away, I think, is when their beliefs start to take over, like this zealot-like mentality. And I think it's just passion. When somebody believes something, they just get passionate about it. Like, kind of like David Icke, they present it and they give all of the evidence that they know, and you either believe it with them or you don't. And I just kind of leave it at that.
And I highly respect those people. Like, honestly, like, if I ever meet those people, I'm going to be shaking their hands and thanking them for their work.
Right.
And I'm honest about it. Like, really, I am grateful for what you have done for this community. Because all these people, you have to understand this. These people, what we call them is they cast nets. That's what they do. Their information, their influence, who they are, casts a net into the collective consciousness of humanity. And people that are interested in these things will be pulled to these certain individuals, and they may take them to the next stage of their life. So I completely respect them. And like you said before, a lot of people that are, they're very upset with certain individuals, go look at their information, like really study their information, because they have a lot of amazing things to share with you.
I sometimes wonder if it's the fame and money that upset people. You always hear them say, well, I'm not jealous of this guy or whatever. I'm just, but I'm thinking, well, I understand you're saying that, but they have success and you don't have that kind of success. And why is this focus on these people? Right.
But then I'll put out a counter question. Who's actually successful in this community?
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, that's actually truth. Like, there's a big misconception about the money aspect of this world, or not this world, this community. And like, I go to the conferences, like I'm at Contact in the Desert, Conscious Life Expo. Like, I'm at the big shows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I still have to pay my way to get there. It's like, people don't understand that a lot of these people that go to these shows, I would say 98%, okay, I'll put it at a very high number, 98% of these individuals that go and speak at these conferences, they need to pay their way to get there. And it's coming out of their own pocket because they are passionate about being part of this community. And a lot of these promoters, I know a lot of these promoters personally, and I would say most of these conferences, they're not money makers. To say they're money makers is laughable. There's a couple of successful ones, absolutely.
I know that's so true too, man.
But most of them are just struggling. And why do they do it? Because they love this community, they love this topic, and they're going to put so much effort into work to bring people together. So to bash these people, like they're making money, they're selling like mugs with their logos on it. I'm like, dude, come on. If someone could put a logo on a mug and sell some of these things at the shows, it's going to cover their gas and their meals to be there. And if you can't support them for being there, then this community kind of falls apart almost. Like, I have a regular job. My source of income, my main source of income doesn't come from these conferences. It doesn't come from being on the radio. But we do it because we enjoy it. We love the community. Like, you see me on Facebook, you see me on Twitter. I'm there like every single day, and I'm talking to people, I'm messaging, I'm putting out all types of stuff, because I'm part of that community. I love the community.
Yeah, people think you're in the Jason's taking a picture from overseas, and they think maybe your book sales paid for it or something. And look, every author I've talked to about book sales, I'm like, "Wow, you selling books?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm selling books." But it's not what people think it is at all. So most of these authors are writing books just to have a book, and get their information out, and that's it.
Well, I'll just break the silence right now. I'll tell people what a book really is. A book is a very expensive business card. That's what a book is. All right. So most people will put out books every single year so that they stay relevant. They stay in there, and it comes, they get invited back to the shows. They get invited back to the conferences. But also remember, like, I have a really terrible joke because everybody, my book would be considered successful. And they think, okay, I'm making a lot of money selling my book. I say, yeah, I'm a member of the 100 Heirs Club, because that's basically like, you're going to just book sales, put gas in your car. That's it.
Yeah. Well, this, with all due respect and all fairness, though, Forbidden Knowledge, with the one you wrote with Bob Mitchell, sorry, because I'm looking at it and I was just reading the front. This thing is, I've destroyed the cover of this book because I've thumbed through it so much, by the way, but this was more than a business card to me, though, brother.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a business card in a sense that it connected me to you.
Right.
Now you know who I am. Right? And that's the best advertisement you can do, is now when you read my story, you knew who I was. Before I even talked to you, you knew who I was.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a way to connect to somebody. So me being on the radio, me putting out books is a way for me as an individual to reach out to someone I don't know and say, I'm here on this planet just like you, and I'm having the same experience as you, so you're not alone. That's what this is. That's
exactly how it made me feel too. That's really cool that you said that, because it's a great book, and but I still when I even looking at the cover of this book, the cover grabs my attention. I didn't even when I saw the cover of this book, I knew exactly kind of what it was. I don't know how you did that, but and this is like one of your first books. It's not even your newest stuff. What's the newest one? To the Yosef Codes, right?
Yeah, actually, they're all old. The newest one is the Forbidden Knowledge, but what I am doing constantly is trying to update it.
Okay.
Because, for example, Forbidden Knowledge was written very fast. It only took a couple months to write Forbidden Knowledge, and we released it very fast. And there was a lot of spelling errors and grammatical errors. There's a lot of stuff in that book that we didn't catch. So over the past couple of years, I've been kind of fixing those quietly and putting them back out. But I have to kind of take all the books and continually update them and make sure that the spelling is correct. So, but it's all exactly the same content, just like periods and capitals and misspellings are changed.
Is this Merkaba? This is something I've been getting into because through Kabbalah and all, just about everything. Mm-hmm. This Merkaba shape keeps showing up and everything. And is this thing, I don't know, let me think if I can find the right word for it. Is this like our own personal little spaceship that we can build out of our own energy? What is this thing?
I would say that a Merkaba, which is an Egyptian word as well, it is the structure of life. It's the structure of energy, and it's the structure of movement. So we have these sacred geometries built within us, within our energy fields. And I know that there was a popular writer, Drunvalo Melchizedek, who wrote a couple very interesting books back in the day about this Merkaba. And in his teachings, he talks about how it's part of the energy field, and that with your will and meditative intent, you can take the Merkaba field, which is around you, and it's two tetrahedrons interlocked like a Star of David. And what you do is you spin it. And as you spin it, you create this kind of light ship, which takes you on different journeys. In my teachings, like in what I learned, is that the energy field is in movement always, and you can actually create different energy fields using sacred geometry for different purposes. So I know, for example, the Merkaba is a very powerful, I would say, generative energy, whereas if you would meditate and focus on a Merkaba and spin it, you are actually drawing very powerful energy into the body, which actually expands, grows, and strengthens you. So if I go back to Drunvalo Melchizedek and his teachings of the light body, I could absolutely see how that could cause an outer body experience, because what you're doing is you're changing the vibratory nature of your energy field, and you would be popping out of your body or having an experience just by going into these different fields of sacred geometry.
I gotcha. Yeah, because I'm the same way with UFOs. Like, I don't believe everything is a UFO. Like, every time somebody sees something or it powers up, I don't know. I mean, it's unidentified, but I think sometimes maybe they're satellites. But here's the thing, right? Like, Tim Doyle caught this thing with a camera. And in my mind, he's like one of the most integral UFO hunters on the planet. And he caught this thing with a camera that was amber colored. And it moved so fast that you really couldn't catch it with a video camera. And it was like this kind of ball of dim light that kind of went into a mountain and disappeared. And I started looking at other, UFO videos and stuff. And I was like, what if these are just like interdimensional travelers using this macabre per se, right? And they're not really coming from other planets. They're just kind of moving in and out of dimensions, right? And that's what my theory on that. And it's based on a lot of what you teach and talk about and stuff too.
Yeah, that's actually a lot of the things I've been talking about recently, that these ships that people are seeing, these light ships, we call them ships because we don't understand them, but it could be completely different than what our beliefs are. And it could be an interdimensional being. And that's what their body looks like.
So that's so wild just to think about that. Even the little bitty, like orbs and stuff, people think it's like ball lightning or whatever. It could be, I mean, the implications are endless.
Like, I came close to one of these things, and,
really?
Well, this is a very different story. It's not like I have seen the ships that you're talking about very close to me, but this experience was very different. And I was with a friend of mine, and I love photography. This person loves photography, and we decided to go in the middle of the night into a forest and test our new cameras out, right? And in the distance, we saw this bright green light in the forest, and it was on the forest floor. And what it looked like was a road flare. So think of a road flare and the brightness of a road flare, but it was green light. And we couldn't believe what we were seeing because we're like just in the middle of a forest and there's no one around. And we approached this thing and we're standing right on top of it. So we're looking right at it, both of us. And it emitted no heat, no sound. It was just this road flare, very bright light right in front of us, illuminating the ground around it, illuminating us. And I took our flashlight and I shined the flashlight on this thing, and there was nothing there. And when I turned the flashlight off, it was gone. Like it didn't exist. Wow. We both had cameras on us. We both had very good cameras on us, but we were so hypnotized by whatever this thing was, neither of us even thought to pick up the camera and take a picture of it. That's how crazy this was, right? Yeah. Just a complete mystery. And when you see these UFOs, and I was talking to Jimmy Church about this on his show a couple weeks back, a lot of these videos of these UFOs that are flying by, they're flying by at such a massive amount of speed, right? Yet you don't hear any sonic booms. It's not moving the wind around it. So it could pass right by a tree. Not one leaf on that tree is going to move from that passing by, and it's silent, which means it defies all laws of the natural world. What if we're not witnessing something in the natural world? What if we're seeing a glimpse of another dimension, something passing through another dimension in front of us? Then all these things, all these weird things of no sound, no moving of the air, it starts to make more sense that we're not viewing something in our physical reality. We're viewing something that's passing through a dimension that we can tap into and see.
I'm tripping out right now. I don't know what to say because I think you're right about that.
Okay, so here's an example. I tell this story a lot it actually happened where I live right now. And there's a lake by me. It's called Lake Simcoe in Ontario here.
Yeah.
And one night we were out with a bunch of friends. There was like an outdoor festival here. And this was when the festival was closed, and, everybody's breaking down their gear and packing up. And over the lake, this very huge UFO, clear as day, it was a glowing reddish orange ship. It was huge. And it was moving so slowly in the sky over the lake, so obvious. And there was other ships with it, the smaller ships kind of like buzzing around it. And I'm sitting there looking up at this thing, and some guy that was in a roadie or in the band, I don't know who this person was, but I'm standing near the stage looking up at this thing, and this guy comes next to me. He looks it up, and he's looking at what I'm looking at. He's like, "Is that a UFO?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's definitely a UFO. I mean, what else could it be?" And this giant ship, which is this orange red light ship. That's all I could describe it as. Like a dimmer switch on a light bulb?
Yeah.
That you could just like dim the light bulb out?
Right.
That's what happened. It's like this ship, like a dimmer light, just phased right out. It didn't fly away. It didn't shoot off in incredible speeds. It was almost like it just phased into another dimension in front of our eyes.
Yeah, so, earlier I was telling you about, we were talking about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and the background and what's right about it and what's not. Well, regardless of all of that, back in the early 2000s, I used to listen to that text. Well, I listened to the audio version on YouTube by another guy named Josh Reeves, he was a more conspiracy guy, but I was listening to it for other reasons. And really late at night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, I was listening to it over and over again, trying to, I guess, decipher what this message was saying. And I went outside for a break because I was painting a house at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that's the only thing I could do on the side. And I went outside and I leaned on the truck and I looked up and there was this bright, like, light. And I thought, man, I've never seen that bright star in the middle of the sky before like that. And then it phased around almost like a car spotlight in the middle. And I was like, what is that, a plane? But it didn't move. It didn't make a sound. And then it just kind of shrank and disappeared. But after that, before it did that, I thought, when I asked myself, what is that? Then it kind of looked like it was shining on me, like it was looking right at me. And I was like, was that thing spotlighting me or something from the sky, And then that's when it wheeled around like a spotlight and then just phased out and it was gone. It wasn't a star. I don't know what it was. Didn't make a sound, nothing.
Same. Okay. This is why I love talking on the radio with people like you, because, we have the same experiences and we could share this live and naturally, right?
Yeah.
I went to the cottage with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and we went with a bunch of friends, and we're sitting out on the dock on the lake, and it's at night, totally clear sky. Like you can just see every star in the sky. It's totally clear night. And we're just sitting and chilling on the dock and talking and everything. And there's this really bright star. It's like a really bright star. And I'm thinking, okay, that's Polaris, the North Star. And it's like we are bathed in this blue light. And you could see it on the lake. Like it's like a really bright star. You can see the light on the lake. You see it on us. And we're talking about it. We're like, look
unnaturally bright, right? Like unnaturally bright.
Like a spotlight. We're like, look at how bright that star is. We didn't think it was a UFO. We didn't think anything. We're like, wow, like that is so beautiful that it's such a clear night sky and there's this really bright star. It's like we have a spotlight on us. Like we're all noticing it, right? And we're all looking at it and talking about it, and suddenly it just shut off. It just shut off.
So it happened to you too then?
It happened to me too. It didn't just happen to me. It happened to about 5 or 6 people all sitting on the dock.
What time was it? Was it like early in the morning?
No. This was probably about like 11, 12 at night.
What do you think that was, man? Do you think that was something coming through interdimensionally?
That's the only thing I could think of. Like, I have no idea. Like, that's the real truth. I have no idea what this is. And I put out a movie called Boarding Benevolence, like a free documentary about people's experiences at ESETI Ranch at the Soul Tech Gathering last summer. And if people are familiar with James Gilliland or ESETI Ranch, they're always talking about and experiencing, like I've experienced it so many times there, is these UFOs will come over the property and everybody's kind of yelling at the UFO, power up, like that's what they're yelling, right? And you'll see this UFO and suddenly it just like explodes in light, like this, it just bang, like really bright light starts to come out of it. It gets very bright. And in the video, you could actually see a real image or real video that was taken by James of these ships doing that, like powering up basically. Now, I don't know what they are. I don't think anybody knows what they really are. But my wife and I, when we came back to Canada, we were talking about this. We're like, why, when people are yelling into the sky, power up, suddenly this ship explodes in light? Like, does that mean it's tapped into us? Does it mean that it knows we're asking it to do something? Or is it just completely coincidental, right? And we're walking down the street at night talking about this. And I just said, I'm like, I don't understand it. Maybe they're trying to say hello to us. And when I said that, this huge ball of light in the sky just like ignited right in front of us.
I've got to go up to that place, man. I don't really have a choice in the matter. I've got to go.
Yeah. And like I say, take the belief systems out of the experience. All right. Go up there. You don't know anything. You'll never know anything. Experience what happens. You know, and then you could sit out in that field at night and maybe you'll see something that resembles Bigfoot. Maybe you'll have a fairy experience. Maybe you're going to see a UFO that's going to come right above you and flash you or move in weird ways or go into the mountain. You got to check out this documentary we put up. It's free on YouTube called Boarding Benevolence. You'll see ships going in and out of that mountain. It's crazy. I've seen it with my own eyes. I don't need a video camera. I witnessed those things happening there. So if these things happen, they're real. Can I say what they are? No. I have no idea what they are, but we could observe it.
Yeah, and I know that another show host that I follow is like Clyde Lewis. I know he went up there and he was kind of skeptical about certain things like Bigfoot, and he said he saw one. Like he had an experience up there too. And I've had James Gilliland on the show, and really the reason why I wanted to talk to him was to feel him out and see how real this was. And after talking to the guy, man, it wasn't a question. None of this stuff was a question in his mind. You know, these are definitely UFOs. There's definitely something going on. And he had some narratives that he brought to the table about it. But I could tell after talking to him that there was no doubt that this stuff was real.
Yeah, there is definitely phenomenon that happens out there, but it's not the only place. Like I live up here in Canada. You know, what they see at ESETI Ranch, I mean, that's just kind of common here. You can just go outside and you'll see that stuff. You know, so there's many locations around the planet that you can view these things. But, you know, I never had actually, that's not true. I had one Bigfoot experience as a teenager up here in Canada, but I never actually seen anything. But at ESETI Ranch, we saw real Bigfoot footprints. You couldn't deny it. Like you can try to write it off as anything. You can't. It's like you literally see the toe marks kicking up the mud. That's how real these things are. But the crazy thing about these Bigfoot sightings are they're only there for a couple seconds. And you can track them. You can see the tracks on the ground. And some of the tracks are only like 4 or 5 steps. There's nothing before and nothing after. They just pop into the reality, pop out of the reality.
That's so wild.
And that's what eyewitnesses see as well. It's like they're just there and they're gone almost instantly.
Well, it's funny how that works, right? Because I'm the type of guy that takes a little bit more than most for me to buy into something, right? And then others, they're extremely skeptical, right? They just don't believe in nothing. But once it happens to them, then everything's over. Their paradigm, it shifts their paradigm. And that's what I see. Like a lot of this is people that just haven't had that experience yet. And so, and I totally understand it. Like you said earlier, truth is perception. The reason why they're so skeptical about it is because they haven't experienced it yet. It's not real to them. But once it happens, everything changes.
Like we had Jimmy Church, he's a big guy, right? He's a big guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to guess his weight, but he's a big guy. And we looked at these tracks right away, fresh. We were like the first people on the scene. I got videos of it and pictures, and they were about an inch deep into the soil. And this wasn't soft soil. This was like hard soil. And Jimmy is standing there jumping up and down next to it, seeing if he could even make a mark on the soil. And he couldn't. You know, it's like whatever made this mark had to be over 500 pounds easy.
Wasn't he like 6 foot tall, Jimmy?
Yeah.
He's a tall guy, right?
He's a tall guy.
So he's probably he's probably around 200 pounds at least then.
Gotta be.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Somewhere. And like I put my foot in those tracks. I put my hand in them. Like very strange to actually see this evidence. And the strides were about almost 6 feet a stride from footprint to footprint. 6 feet. So we got Jimmy and even myself tried to jump to see if we could make a step, and we could barely make the step jumping. So this thing was big, whatever this thing was.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I've never been a Bigfoot guy though, not too much. Like I don't have too many Bigfoot people on the show. I have the hardest time believing in things like cryptids, but when people like you talk about it, or say for instance when Clyde Lewis brought it up, I was like, okay, there's something to this. There's something to it, man.
And I stayed in the same room as Clyde. Like we talked about this, and he was freaked out. Like he couldn't comprehend what he was looking at. It's like it took him a couple seconds to figure out exactly what he was looking at. So it's like our conscious mind, you know, it really plays tricks on us, because it's if we're viewing something, even our mind is saying it's not real, you know. And I always tell this kind of story. If like a UFO, for example, lands at the White House lawn, right? All the witnesses there that will see this, within a couple days, those witnesses will say it didn't happen. They don't believe it. Their minds will erase these details because it's not in their belief system.
That's crazy why we do that. We do that with religion and everything. Like we'll negate our experience and go back to our original paradigm for some reason. That's weird that we do that, isn't it?
People enjoy comfort, right? So if you could find comfort in a belief, and there's nothing wrong with that, there really isn't. But if you can find comfort, and then something tries to pull you outside of that comfort zone and you're not ready to deal with that reality, there is no way that that's going to take you out of that belief system. You know, so if somebody has like a genuine, let's say like outer body experience, and they're met by like a being standing there, if you're like a highly religious person, the first thing you're going to say or think is that this was like a demon, and this experience was like the devil testing you. You know, so you take the experience and then you filter it through your own belief system, right? So it's tainted now. So you don't actually know the true purpose of what just happened to you because you've applied your filters and your belief system to the experience. And that's why I'm telling you and the listeners is that once we start to go down this path of experience it's almost like we have to let go of all our belief systems so that we can have a true experience and try to learn what is going on here, because it's not what they taught us.
Right.
It really isn't what they taught us. It's different.
So then you don't really have any, based on what you're telling me, is you don't have really any religious beliefs per se. Like you're just a naturally curious guy, and that's what's allowed you to have a lot of these experiences, because you just go with it.
That is true. I do not have a religious background. I would say I'm very spiritual.
Right.
Very spiritual. I believe that spirit, energy, consciousness is in everything. And that is the true nature of God and understanding, is that there is a force of consciousness that is through everything multidimensionally of all creation. And we can tap into that and be it. We are it. We're part of that source. We're part of that field of awareness. But as a religion or topics like that, no, I was never into that stuff. I never really studied it or got into it. So when these things started to happen to me, I actually became very religious because you think, this is bad. You start praying. Like I tell people that, when these things started happening to me and I would be attacked astrally by these entities, I prayed to every god I could think of, every angel I could call out to. I did that. I became very religious very fast. When you don't have control and you do not know what's happening to you, you become very religious, trust me. But then over time, I realized that for me, and this is just a personal thing, I had to learn more about it. I had to kind of step out of that kind of religious mindset and be completely aware of what's happening to learn what is going on. Because it's almost like most people will have these experiences, get very upset and afraid, or it goes against their beliefs, and then they never have these experiences ever again, because I would say they're not ready for that experience. A being or a higher self, or even your own self in another world or dimension, may come tap you on the shoulder at night and say, do you remember who you are? Do you remember that you're me? Do you remember that you can travel like me and you're not bound by a body? You inhabit a body at this moment. Sometimes that's too much for somebody to handle.
Yeah.
To come to that. Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to accept those kind of things. But if you look at like our books, like the Hopi and all that stuff, they talked about all this stuff. I talked about with Laird Scranton, even Robert Schoch, people like that. I said, look, these people believe that your dream state and this other realm state was the actual reality, and this was an illusion. And you talked about earlier, the idea of gnosis is to walk in an awakening state. That's what I've been taught. Like you're awake all the time, whether you're asleep or awake, you never really lose consciousness, so to speak. So the problem that I have with is, and something I'm trying to learn that I think you're teaching me is to stop with comparisons, stop with the beliefs. Like I got a lot of things going on in my mind, man, like skepticism, beliefs, comparisons, everything. And I think the reason why, if I get what you're saying, is that I negate some of the experiences I could have is because I'm holding on to those things too much instead of just saying, let's see what happens.
Right. And they could be awful experiences.
Yeah, right.
They could be terrible experiences. And they could be enlightening, beautiful experiences too. And I would say to people that don't say that having a negative experience is bad or good. They're all just teachings. They're all just teachings. Like if I didn't learn how to deal with entities, I'd still be kind of fearful and fighting them off. Now it's like when they come to me, it's almost like I get a little weird joy out of it because I'm like, oh, I'm going to show them what I can do. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing where it's like, at first you're afraid, like really, you're genuinely fearful of these things. And you get to a point where they're afraid of you. It's the weirdest thing. That's right.
So that nasty hooded thing with the pale head and weird looking eyes, that thing, if I shifted, I guess, my weight around a little bit, I don't want to look at it that way, but it would be scary to me. That's funny. Thomas Campbell told me the same thing, and he's a really like a scientific type of guy. And he tells me the same things that you tell me, like, you got to let go. You got to stop with the expectations, the skepticism, everything that's going on in your head. And you've got to realize, I guess, that you're in control of as much as you want to be and just let go. It sounds so easy, man. But I got this feeling like when I get off this call with you that I'm going to go back to this realm of my head spinning again around all this stuff.
Well,
got to work through it.
I can't help you with that.
Got to work through that stuff. That's your own individual journey.
Yeah, okay, it's strange. And I keep using that word, it's strange. Because, okay, let's say every single night you're attacked by an entity, right? At first, you're like angry, you're fearful, like you hate what's happening to you, right? But if it happens every single night, you're going to get to a point where you're completely aware and comfortable knowing that it's happening because it's happened already 100 times. So instead of becoming angry and hateful, you become frustrated and annoyed. Okay? That's completely different energy, to be frustrated and annoyed. So now when these entities come, you're like, nice to see you. You start being playful and joke around like, oh, you again. It's good to see you. Because you just stop caring that this thing is happening. You lose that fear because it happens so often. And then suddenly you realize that you have a power over it that you didn't know you had before. Because you're not giving into that fear.
Right.
So, it's kind of awful to say that, you have to kind of go through this a while, but it's the same thing as swimming. You got to learn how to swim or you're going to drown. Right? It's the same thing with astral travel. You're going to be dealing with things. Regardless if you think you're going to cover yourself with white light or you're going to pray to a being, it doesn't matter. You're going to deal with things if you go into the astral world, regardless of your beliefs.
But faith does kind of help, though. And it, like when I say faith, I mean like for protection reasons. I don't want to digress at all, but I was just on a podcast with somebody and they were talking about, they were pagan and they had a faith in the god Morpheus. They grew up pagan and we shared out of body experiences and we both had scary events and we both called out to different gods and we both got the things to go away. And I was like, okay, well then there's something to be said about belief and faith too.
This is what you have to know about these beings. For one, you have to know that you are stronger than it, that you are in control and they are not. Like it is a type of faith, but it's more of a knowing. And once you get into that mindset and you know that these things cannot hurt you and you know that you are stronger than it, suddenly you are. And that's just the truth of the situation. So many people that have faith in, let's say, this deity, for example, and they've grown up with this knowledge and they can call upon this deity with that faith and trust, they may have a knowing that by doing this, this will happen. And in turn, it will. So it really comes down, not just faith, okay? It's more of a knowing. You have to know that you are greater or stronger or in control of the situation. And when you have that mindset, you become like Neo in the Matrix, where he stops the bullets. He just says no. And he knows he's in control. And that's similar to what you can do in the astral world with these beings, is that they can try to manipulate and play with you. And if you believe that they are stronger than you, or you're fearful of them, they will continue to do that to you. And then once you say no, and you know that you are at that level where you can stop it, it will stop. So you definitely have this control in knowing, and it does stem from faith in yourself or faith in a higher power.
Man, this has been a good show when I've missed 2 breaks, and I put you through the long ride tonight, man. So I really appreciate that. I do on a Friday night. It's really cool to be able to talk to you about these things, because I don't get that opportunity. And to be honest with you, man, I've had a lot of guests on here, but there's only a few people that I really connect with in a certain way. And I connect with you in a certain way. It's more of a trusting type way. And I'll say again, because it's the way you look at things, right? You don't, you're not a zealot, right? And I'm learning to let that go too. You're kind of helping me learn to let that go, because zealots bother me. And I think that comes from my childhood and religious upbringing and stuff. But I also think, because I have those barriers, and I know other people do too, that they're missing out on certain things because they don't want to. People are afraid, Jason, that they're going to be tricked, fooled, or lied to. I mean, that's what the whole conspiracy community is about, man. It's like everybody's lying to me about every little thing. And at some point I wonder, it's healthy to be skeptical, but you can get a mental illness on both sides of this scale,
The problem with conspiracy theorists is, yes, people are lying to you. There are cover-ups. There are things that you're not supposed to know, or people think you're not supposed to know. All right. So there is conspiracy out there. The problem becomes when everything is seen as a conspiracy, that everything has an agenda. And that's when it gets really convoluted, and you get all these infighting and things like that. So, it is true. And, I was there too. I mean, when I first had my awakening and I went down that rabbit hole, I did look at the world as being a really, really awful place. I'm not going to lie. It was hard. It's very depressing. I think people that go through an awakening, it's not love and light and unicorns. It's pain.
Dark. Yeah.
It's dark. You're online searching 9/11. You're online searching reptilians, or, you're going to the worst places possible and seeing your world crumble in front of you, and it changes you in a really dark way. And then you have to kind of get that out of your system, I'll say. You get it out of your system and you say, what is this doing for me? Is this improving my life, or is this making me worse? And, I've had some friends, and it's sad to say, but they got stuck in that conspiracy mind. And they look at the world as the most awful place, and they can't cope with the world now because of what they've learned in conspiracy, So it's affecting their life in a very, very negative way. And we have to understand that knowing that stuff is great, if that's what you want to research. But how is it improving you? I have a philosophy. It's basically what I live by. And it's are you bringing joy into this world? There's all this garbage in this world. There's all this hate and anger, and there's a lot of terrible things in this world. So yeah. Are you going to add to the despair? Are you going to add to the tragedies of this world? Or are you going to bring joy back into this world? And that's a choice that people have to make for themselves. And like you see on my Facebook and Twitter, I'm posting weird stuff all the time. I'm not going to lie, I'm posting weird stuff. And why do I do that? because I want someone like you who's having a bad day to come across my post, and it's going to make you laugh.
Oh man, especially today, because we talked about that flat Earth burger, the Big Mac flat Earth thing, and I was just like, maybe that Big Mac, and all I said was, maybe the Big Mac proves that there's no that the Earth isn't flat. Look at the picture, right? And dude, the emails have not stopped yet. It's like I don't know. It's like they're a mob, and they get angry if you don't believe it. I don't think all flat Earth investigators that way, but there are some angry ones, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, because remember, they're seeing the world through their eyes, through their filters and perceptions, and they're comfortable there. They've found a place where they're comfortable with that information. It makes their world more trusting or understandable. And when someone says, well, here's a picture of the Earth from just some random YouTuber that put something up in the sky, and you definitely see the world is curved, that hurts their reality, that hurts their belief system, and they will come out fighting to protect their comfort zone.
Yeah. I used to have this guy that comes on the show named Rusty, and we got to talking about Christianity, and I was giving him my mystic point of view, and we were outside of the studio talking, and he was like, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, Joe, I feel like I want to punch you in the face right now. And I was like, why do you want to punch me? We're just talking. Because he goes, you're just screwing up my whole way of life with what you're saying. But he was being so honest. And I was like, but I don't know if it's true. I just feel that way. I'm not, And he's like, but I got to go because I feel like I want to punch you. That's why I love the guy, because he's so honest with me.
Right. And don't get me started. Don't get me started on that, because there's so many things out there that could be easily debunked, Yeah. Even like the Bible, there's stories in there that, if you really read them, you'll realize that I don't even want to go there because I don't want to get hate mail.
Well, we don't have time to go there anyways. We only got 2 minutes till we got to get out of here. But
that's what I'm saying is you could find holes in everybody. And you don't think I get emails from people all the time saying that I'm a fraud and a liar, or I'm going to hell for saying what I'm saying? Yeah. Dude, I get that all the time.
I bet. Yeah, I bet.
Right. So what are you going to do? And I say there's this math principle, or it's what do I say? Especially with social media or being a public figure. All right. Once you reach a certain number of people that listen to you or follow you, there's a percentage of people in that group that despise and hate you. And all they want to do is take whatever you put out there and twist it or turn it around on you. And it will always happen. There's this very small percentage of people. So the more you grow, there will be a bigger group of people that really hate what you have to say, but they're still following everything that you're doing.
Well, yeah. And I don't hate anything that you have to say so far, man. You've done nothing but help everybody out and help me out. And thanks for coming on the show, Jason. It's been a blast for us to do it again sometime.
Thanks again, Joe. And I hope that some of the information that came out tonight really changed people's perspective.
It did for me anyways. And yeah, we got 30 seconds to roll out of here. thecrystalsun.com. Go check it out. It's Jason Quitt. And we got to roll out of here. The show was produced by the Fringe FM. It cannot be broadcast or syndicated without written permission. The music was by Chronox, Bundy, Space Station, and Kevin MacLeod. We'll see you guys Monday night. Thanks for hanging out with us on our first Friday night show. See you next week.
sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.